Our modern perspective often treats humanity as a pathogen. We watch industrialized cities expand across the map like a blooming infection, swallowing forests and paving over the life support systems of the planet. This has created a pervasive belief that the only path to a healthy Earth is for humans to remove themselves from it entirely. We assume that nature can only reach its full potential in our absolute absence. That ideal of an untouched wilderness was largely popularized by the first European conservationists to reach the Americas. They looked at grand, sweeping landscapes like Yosemite and believed they were witnessing a first Eden, a world that had never known the touch of a human hand. John Muir was instrumental in turning this perception into law. He viewed these landscapes through the lens of terra nullius, nobody's land, advocating for a pure wilderness that needed to be cordoned off from human influence to remain sacred. But Muir and his contemporaries were looking at a tragic misunderstanding. They mistook the silence of a depopulated landscape for its natural, original state. Modern ecological historians have since uncovered a very different reality. In 1492, the Americas were home to complex civilizations, living in highly managed biomes. This is the pristine myth. The vast open parkland lens seductive forests that early colonists marveled at were actually the remnants of ancient, highly manicured ecosystems. The wildness, Muir observed, was an ecosystem in a state of arrested succession. The dense, tangled brush and overgrowth were signs of a garden losing its structure because the people who had carefully gardened it for millennia had been removed. Indigenous populations utilized a framework called Indigenous Regenerative Ecosystem Design. They didn't just inhabit their regions, they designed them, facilitating complex communities of plants and animals to maximize the abundance of the entire system. This history changes the baseline for the human species. It suggests that our role on this planet can be that of an essential planetary caretaker rather than an inevitable disaster. In ecology, a keystone species is an organism that holds an entire system together. For the majority of our evolutionary history, humans functioned as exactly that. On the American plains, indigenous populations operated as landscape architects. They were active terraformers who used specific land management techniques to increase the carrying capacity of the entire region. Their primary tool was fire. Low-intensity dormant season burns cleared invasive brush while leaving mature trees unharmed. The fire rapidly converted dead matter into nutrient-dense ash, which settled into the soil, stimulating the deep root systems of prairie grasses. These human-managed grasslands were far more productive than an unmanaged prairie. This high-yield forage provided the biological foundation for the massive bison herds that eventually numbered in the tens of millions. The abundance explorers saw in the American West was an engineered outcome. Fire was the technological input that allowed humans to sustain a continental-scale game reserve. This regenerative engineering extended to the oceans. Along the Pacific Northwest coast, ancient marine aquaculture proves human design can directly increase a shoreline's productivity. Indigenous communities built clam gardens by stacking heavy stones at the low tide mark. As tides roll in, the rock wall traps ocean sediment, flattening the beach's slope. This artificial terrace created massive new habitat, facilitating an exponential increase in estuarine biomass.
These gardens demonstrate a core principle of regenerative design. Human activity can expand the limits of a given habitat, allowing more life to thrive than would be possible through natural forces alone. For nearly 10,000 years, the primary human pattern was one of custodianship. Our current era of industrial resource extraction represents only a tiny fraction of our time on this planet. This recent period is a plague phase, driven by economic models that demand infinite growth. We have shifted from being a keystone species that supports life to a consumer organism that competes with every other species for energy and space. The flaw in our modern thinking is the belief that we are independent of the environment. We have built global systems that ignore the biophysical laws of thermodynamics and the limits of the ecosystems that support us. But our long-term survival is rooted in our evolutionary history as a bioregionally regenerative species. Our current destructive path is a brief deviation from a much older, more sustainable pattern. Solving the ecological crisis requires us to reevaluate the assumption that we are an invasive presence on this planet. We have to remember that the biosphere does not belong to us. We belong to it. That realization allows us to tap into an ancient capability. We still carry the capability to use our intelligence and our technology to act as architects of abundance. The path forward isn't found by erasing humanity from the landscape. It is found by remembering how to take our place back within it. We have built our world on a high-stakes assumption that our industrial momentum is as unsinkable as the steel hulls we once set into the Atlantic. But the elephant in the room has grown too large to ignore, moving out of our private shadows and into the center of our lives. This is the meta-crisis, the tipping point where the stories of endless growth collide with the physical limits of our planet. The Lifeboat Mini Course is your immediate, structured transition, a free 5-day journey delivered to your inbox to transform global anxiety into local resilience. Day 1 begins with an audit of the invisible, the energy and water systems you rely on every hour, yet rarely ever see. Day 2 forces a change in your geographical lens, challenging you to locate your true home within your watershed and local bioregion. You won't navigate this terrain alone. You will receive daily study guides and synthesized patterns designed to cut through the noise and reveal the architecture of change. Day 3 asks you to practice active hope in a world facing ecological overshoot. Day 4 introduces the demanding standard of revolutionary love. By tracing the water back to your neighbor's tap, you move beyond the narrow walls of self-help and into the expansive, interconnected practice of systems health. The climax arrives on Day 5 with the introduction of a specific framework for your future, the 9x21 harvest. Who is your mutual guiding spirit in this transition, and which 9 things will you choose to do? Stop waiting for the headlines to crush you. Sign up for the Lifeboat Mini Course now. Access your Day 1 materials immediately and join the community hub where the next story of our world is already being written.
You can remain tied to the illusion of a collapsing global credit card, or take this course to begin building real systems health today. The Earth is tired of the lie. It is time to dance with the truth.